Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be looking at this really interesting legal case involving 50 Cent and Worldstarhiphop.
Back in the day?
Yeah, we've got some court documents here, specifically an opinion and order from the Southern District of New York. And I think this is going to be really fascinating.
It is fascinating.
To kind of dig into this.
Yeah.
So,
legal maneuvering.
Yeah, so why don't we just jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, who are the players in this? Give us the overview.
So on the one side, we've got Curtis Jackson.
Right.
A.K.A. 50 Cent.
Of course.
He's the head of G-Unit Records and Today Entertainment.
Yeah.
So we're talking about some serious business interests here.
Big business.
Big time.
Okay, and on the other side?
Leo Knott, the owner of WorldstarHipHop.com.
Oh, wow. WorldStarHip.
Yeah. What a...
It was the place to go for unfiltered content.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Back in the day. Music videos, street fights, viral moment.
Everything?
Like, you name it.
Yeah, just outrageous stuff.
Okay, so 50 Cent and WorldstarHipHop.
Yes.
How did they end up
How did this happen?
in court against each other?
Well, 50 and his companies, they alleged that Worldstar was using his image and his intellectual property without permission.
Okay.
So you think like G-Unit, trademark, the out artwork,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Like using his likeness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without permission.
To make money.
And they filed a lawsuit seeking damages and an injunction to get them to stop.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
if you build a brand, you got to protect it.
Right.
I imagine Odin had some sort of defense, though, right?
Of course he did.
Okay.
He claimed that a DJ by the name of Yves Mondesir, who had worked for 50, actually gave him permission.
Really?
Yes. He said that Mondesir was acting as 50's agent.
Could a DJ really have the power
That's the question.
to just give away
Yeah.
50 cents,
Right.
image rights? Well, that's where it gets interesting because, that's agency law. And it can be a little tricky
Yeah.
because an agent can act on behalf of someone.
Right.
But, in this case, 50, but their authority to act is limited.
Yeah.
So there needs to be clear evidence that 50 specifically gave this DJ the power to go and make deals like this.
Okay, so this is like a classic.
He said.
And
Yeah.
the court has to figure out,
So-
who's telling the truth.
Who to believe.
Right.
And there's another twist to the story.
Oh, there is.
After the lawsuit was filed, 50 Cent's team, they discovered that Odin had created not one, not two, but 3 new businesses.
What?
WorldstarHipHop, Inc., WorldStar LLC, and WSHH 337 LLC.
Hold on. So 3 new companies after the lawsuit was filed.
Yeah.
That sounds a little suspicious.
Yeah, and that's exactly what 50 alleged he said, that Odin was trying to hide assets to make himself what they call judgment-proof, so that if he did lose the lawsuit, there wouldn't be anything to take.
It's like if you knew someone was going to sue you and you just moved all your money.
Exactly.
Like your mom's account.
It's like, oh, you can't touch this money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, the courts aren't stupid, are they?
No, they're not.
I mean...
They saw right through it.
Yeah.
The judge, John F. Keenan, allowed 50 to amend his lawsuit and add these companies because even though Odin owned them, they're legally distinct entities.
Oh.
Yeah. So just because you open up a bunch of companies doesn't mean you can escape liability.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we've got a rapper, we've got a controversial website,
Right.
we've got copyright infringement,
Yes.
and now we've got this potential hiding of assets.
Cover up.
Where do we go from here?
Right. Let's take a deeper dive into the legal nitty-gritty, and we'll start with trademark and copyright law, because this really shows just how much 50's brand is worth.
Okay.
His image, the G-Unit logo, they represent real money.
It's all about the brand.
Yeah. And he's not letting anyone use it without a fight.
All right, so let's get into it. Trademarks and copyright. That's like the bread and butter.
It's crucial.
Yeah, for a lot of people.
Especially for artists like 50 Cent.
Right.
Imagine working so hard to build your brand, to create music,
Mm-hmm.
to establish a following.
Years of work.
Years of work,
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
It all has value.
And
Financial, creative value.
Yeah, reputation is everything, right?
It is everything.
And especially in this digital age, your brand is like a huge part of that.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in hip-hop.
Oh, yeah.
The image and branding,
It's so tied in.
it's everything.
Yeah.
So these trademarks and copyrights are super valuable.
So 50 Cent is basically saying WorldstarHipHop is
Using it
using his stuff.
to attract visitors,
Yeah.
to generate revenue.
Without his permission.
Yeah, it's not right.
That's a big no-no.
Big no-no.
Okay, this kind of makes me think about all the fan pages
Yeah.
or like tribute accounts. Where's the line between
Well,
appreciating somebody
that's a great question.
and actually breaking the law?
The law does allow for fair use. Like
Oh.
if you're going to use some copyrighted material to comment on it, criticize it, parody it.
Right,
But
right.
when it comes to commercial use,
Yeah.
things get a lot stricter.
Yeah, like if you're making money off of it.
You better have permission.
Oh,
You're in dangerous territory.
so back to that DJ.
Yeah, the agency law.
Did the court believe?
Wh-
Like, did they buy that the DJ had the authority to do that?
Well, the judge allowed the case to move forward.
Yeah.
But that kind of suggests that he didn't really buy it.
Okay.
Because even if that DJ worked for 50 Cent,
Right.
he couldn't just hand over the rights.
Yeah, you would think you would need
He needs authorization.
something in writing.
Yeah, exactly.
But couldn't that DJ argue that, he was actually helping 50 Cent's career
Well, yeah,
by putting him on Worldstarhiphop?
you could try.
Like getting him more exposure?
He could say it was implied permission.
Yeah.
He could say that ultimately it benefited 50 Cent.
Right.
But the court's going to look at the specifics.
Okay.
They're going to look at his role. They're going to look at any agreements that were previously in place. And was there any evidence that 50 Cent knew about this or approved it?
So this is a good lesson for everybody out there.
It is.
Like, get it in writing,
Yes.
contract.
Clear communication
Or
is
it's
important.
very important.
All right, let's move on to this whole
Yeah, the companies.
creating new companies thing.
Yeah.
So, how does
Fraudulent transfer of assets.
how does that actually work?
Okay. So imagine you owe somebody a lot of money,
Okay,
like maybe because of a legal judgment,
go ahead.
to avoid paying up. You quickly transfer all your valuable assets.
Like your house, your car.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any
Businesses.
difference. Yeah.
Your money. You transfer it all away,
Gotcha.
maybe to a family member, maybe to a new entity you created.
That's basically what 50 Cent was saying.
Right.
That Odinot was trying to do
Like hide the goods.
the goods so that
Yeah.
nobody can get them.
So they can't touch it.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what happens if the courts find out that you've done this?
Well, it can be bad.
Yeah.
The court can void those transfers,
So they can bring it back.
bring it all back.
Okay.
And you could even face fines, penalties,
Oh, wow.
and in some cases, even criminal charges.
So this is not something to mess around with.
No, it's not.
Okay, so this case is really highlighting, playing by the rules.
It is.
Both in business and the legal system.
Absolutely, because the courts have ways to protect people
Right.
if they've been wronged.
Yeah. And they're going to use them.
They will.
So what's the takeaway here
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
listeners who are, most of them probably aren't rappers or website owners. Well, I think the takeaway here is that in the digital age, it's more important than ever to understand your rights and responsibilities when it comes to intellectual property.
It's easy to just post whatever,
Yeah.
but you gotta
Be mindful.
be mindful.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
Understand the basics of copyright, trademark fair use,
Yeah.
because it could save you a lot of trouble down the line.
So we've covered a lot.
We have
Trademark, copyright,
agency law,
agency law.
fraudulent transfer.
Yeah. It seems
Martin-
like this case has a lot.
This case touches on so much.
It does. And what's interesting is this is back when the internet
We're still new.
was new. Yeah, the rules were being written.
So this case kind of set the stage
Yeah, you could say that it set a precedent
for how we view.
for how we view online copyright infringement
Yeah.
and trying to shield your assets from claims.
And these cases are still relevant today,
They are.
even as technology changes.
It's always evolving.
So the law is always
Trying to catch up.
trying to catch up.
Yes. This brings up an interesting question, though.
So
Is it ever ethical to use legal maneuvering, like creating new companies to protect your assets, even if you believe you're in the right? It's like a gray area, isn't it?
it is, everyone has a right to try and protect what's theirs.
Yeah,
And there are definitely legal ways to go about doing that.
right,
But how far is too far?
right.
Where do you cross that line between,
Yeah.
being smart
Yeah.
and actually trying to just avoid responsibility?
So how can the court even tell? Like,
Yeah.
what are they looking for to see if somebody is actually
Right.
trying to pull something sneaky?
Well, they look at the big picture.
Okay.
They look at intent.
Okay.
Are you doing this for legitimate business purposes like asset protection or tax efficiency?
Okay.
Or are you trying to create this like a smoke screen
Gotcha.
to hide from liabilities and avoid accountability?
So, like, timing.
Timing is huge.
If you just created all these companies right after you got sued.
Exactly.
Red flag.
Yeah, if you start transferring assets right after some big financial obligation comes up,
Yeah.
that's suspicious.
Why would he be looking at you?
Absolutely. And they'll look at the details of the transactions, too.
Okay.
Like, is it at arm's length?
Yeah.
Is there fair market value?
Right.
Or does it just seem like it's designed to hide the real ownership?
So the court's basically like detectives.
Yes.
They're piecing everything together.
Trying to find a pattern of deception.
And in this case, they thought that Odinot's companies...
It seemed a little fishy.
Yeah.
So that's why they allowed 50 to amend his suit and go after those companies.
So what's the lesson here for our listeners?
I think it all comes down to transparency.
Okay.
Ethical conduct.
Yeah.
Both in business and in life.
Yeah.
If you're going to use these legal structures,
Yeah.
you got to be doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
Not to try and,
Hide,
from your obligations.
like they say, what happens in the dark
Comes to light.
comes to light. Exactly.
And in this digital age, you can't really hide anything.
Everything's out there.
Yeah, so just operate with integrity.
Yeah.
It's not just about avoiding legal trouble. It's about building trust.
It's about your reputation.
Exactly.
This whole case really shows how much power celebrities have to control their image online, especially when somebody's trying to make money off of them.
Yeah, 50 Cent wasn't going to let someone use his brand without a fight.
Right.
And the court agreed with him. They said, this has value.
Yeah.
This is worth something.
This is a good reminder for all of us.
Yes.
In the age of social media where everyone's trying to build their brand,
Right.
we have to respect intellectual property.
Yes, definitely.
And that goes both ways.
It does.
Yeah.
Websites, platforms, they need to be responsible for what they're putting out there.
Right.
Make sure they have the proper permissions to use people's stuff.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything here.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Trademark, copyright agency law.
Fraudulent transfer.
It's crazy how this one case
I know.
touches on so many different legal concepts.
It really does. And it's fascinating, how hip-hop and the internet
Yeah.
have kind of collided here.
But here's a final thought for everyone listening.
Okay.
In this world where everyone is online and sharing content,
Yeah.
how do we balance protecting these rights with still being creative and having free expression?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's a tough one.
It is.
No easy answers, but it's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely something we all have to consider as we move forward in this digital world.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Of course, my pleasure.
We'll see you next time.